Yes, Samuel, before you continue, have you started recording the session?
I've just started. I've just started recording the session.
Yeah. All right, nice. So before we go ahead, for some of us that just came in,
Yes.
the person whose voice we've been hearing is our very own Samuel Ngosi in Cohort 15, and he's your learning ambassador together with myself, Daniel Habert, in Cohort 15 as well. So today, like Samuel just said, we'll be taking you on creating a test suite that will help you test your printer function when you have written the code. And we would also talk about some things that would help you, to go about this printer project very well. For example, GitHub collaboration. So over to you, Samuel.
Okay. So so the things we'll be testing with are how printf behaves with different inputs, right? So you'll be creating different test suites for task one, task two, task zero, task one, task two as you go on. For those of you who'll be doing advanced tasks, right? Okay.
Okay.
So the way you do it actually is first you check the return value and what your printf is printing. Okay. So you can see here I declared two integers. So the first one will be taking the let me see. So the first one will just be testing a simple string input. So we can say let's try to print a simple sentence. Sorry about that. Let's try to print a simple sentence. So that's that. So then you come. So you call your printf again, and you also return to a different input, the return value. So this just to check the return value and ensure you're counting your characters right. So you put the same input. So you say let's try to print a simple sentence. Okay. So is that correct? Yes. Then then after that you come down here and you make sure you print out the result of the test. So you say the standard. So first you put a new line. So you notice I'm putting the new line in the standard printf that shows the results of my test. Okay.
Okay.
So you can say say the standard printf returns. Then we say %d while the printf returns %d. So obviously in this particular case, I'm not following the Betty style guide. That's why it's showing me the way it's doing. Okay. So the standard printf is running len and your printf is returning len too. So that's the first test. So and then after this, you of course you use a new line for readability. So then that's that. Now after this, after you printed a simple sentence, then you now start putting the functions. So for example, you can say here, what is it? According to the Betty checks. So the first one, so there was we were using a character. Let's see. Then a character pointer, or rather an array of characters. Then after that, then there was just the percent. So you see, yeah. So you say let's see how it prints character. So first you'll have to initialize the character. You'll have to initialize the character yourself. Say for example c equals to y. Equals say y. Then you print out the character. So you say you come, let's see how it prints. And the format specifier for the character is %c, right?
Yes.
Character. Of course, then you see you close the input output. Then of course now you put the variadic function there. Then you call your function. So of course you check the return value, len equals that. Then you come here, you say len2 equals, then your printf now. You test your printf. Okay, so how you do the same, you put the exact same input. Okay, now we're going to create a test suite for task 1, task 0, I mean the very first task that we are doing. However, we won't be doing for the other tasks. For the other tasks, I encourage you to actually work by yourselves and create your own. Okay,
Okay.
okay, so that's that. Then you do here as that's so. Then you come again now. You copy that. You copy the same input actually. So you just use the standard printf for the input. So notice that in this particular case, your printf, so that when you check the return values, it will you will see the how the printf is counting its characters and what it's printing out. So for example, if you see the your printf is printing out something different, and from the standard printf, you know there's somewhere it's not behaving the way it's required to behave. Okay.
Okay.
Um, I need to copy this. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so then after that, so there's this the task 0 asks you to type for the format specifier C, then S, and then there is the percent specifier. So first, now that you've tested for a character, you need to ensure that it actually also prints the character that is given. So what happens when the character given is, say for example, null? Null. Okay, so you do the same thing. So a moment. So let me see the command. So let me just see how I can copy all this. How I can copy these lines to make my workflow faster. Okay, so a moment. Then let me paste it. See why. Why is it not copying? We seem to be having a problem. Let me just write it down again. So let me admit this person first. Okay. So you see if the input is null. Okay, so printf. Let's try to print null character. So you do realize that the input might change.
Yes.
So let's try to print a null character and see. So then you'll see what printf actually prints, and then you'll compare it with yours. So as I've done right there, then line 2, do the same. You put the exact same input with no change. I would actually advise that you just copy the input actually, so that you see exactly how it happens and the return values. Okay, that's that. Then you check the return values. Percent. Okay, then you give the length. So that's that with the character. Now another caveat, another trick that will be tested, and I'm sure you will not have thought about it, is what happens when the value that is passed after the percent sign is not a format specifier. For example, the letter E or the letter M. None of those characters is a format specifier. You know that, right? Hello, guys.
I'm
Hello.
here.
So when the value that is passed into after the percent sign is not a format specifier. For example, the letter M. So you'll just try to see. Let's see how it happens in that particular case. So for example, we say, or when a specifier is passed and there's no argument to the other hand. Char R. So in this particular case, when you run the program, okay. Sorry. So in this particular case, so you can see what happens in this case. You've passed %m instead of anything. Okay, so the character that is passed is not a format specifier at all, like V in this particular case, you see, or R. Okay, R. U is a format specifier, so I won't do it. Sorry. So for example, the letter not X is a specifier, Z. So you see what happens when the different letters are passed. A letter that is not a specifier, so you'll also need to clone that into the function. So typically they'll use V or, but then you can see what happens. Now let's try.
Sorry.
Okay, so let's do that. So we can, oh sorry, I didn't include a new line in this particular case. So Daniel, hello Daniel.
Yep, Samuel, I'm here.
So while I
What's up?
develop the test suite for the different cases, why don't you take them through how to collaborate on GitHub? I'll stop
Yeah,
sharing.
that's okay.
Okay, fine.
Alright. Okay. So thanks a lot, Samuel, for that. I hope we got how to create. Can we? Are you still sharing your screen?
No, no, no. I've stopped sharing my
I've
screen.
stopped seeing your screen.
I've stopped sharing it.
Okay,
So I want you to share. I mean,
okay,
because
that's
GitHub
fine. I
collaboration is
heard you
one of
pointing
the.
your keyboard. So, all right. The first things, yeah. So protocol, Sile, have you and Okundari here? Do you have you been able to create your repository or maybe clone your partner's repository into your local machine? Did you have any issues with that?
For me, no. I've not had any issue with GitHub yet. Yet. Not yet. No.
All right, that's fine. That's okay. So how do we do this? All right. So let's talk about GitHub collaboration. The reason why the Printf project is a paired project is because out there in real life, when you become a software engineer, you're going to have to be collaborating with your work colleagues. You're working on a project together most of the time. You're not working alone, and so um, as a group, two or more people are working on the same repository. So that repository represents whatever it is you're building. Okay. And by division of labor, each person is supposed to do maybe a small aspect of that whole big program or project you're working on. And so that's why ALX is introducing you to pair projects and source control on GitHub so that you understand how it works. Um, if you all have not had any issues with creating the repository or cloning the repository that your partner created, uh, then that's nice. That's the first step, of collaborating in a project on GitHub. First of all, you either create the repository. It's called the remote repository now. So you might want to take note of some of these things. It's called the remote repository. Remote simply being that it's somewhere, maybe online or something. In our situation, it's on GitHub. Now, one person creates that repository and invites, since it's just two people working on this project now, invites the other person to be a collaborator, which you've done that. The next step is to clone this repository into your own working environment. By your own working environment, we mean your own terminal. It could be the sandbox, or if you're using Vagrant, or if you're using Windows subsystem for Linux, whatever terminal you're using, your local environment. When you clone it, you clone this remote repository into your local environment using the git clone command. I'm sure you've gone through that step. Now, the where most people are going to be having issues, there are two ways now going forward to go about working together as a pair. The first of all, ALX requires that you have you commit 50-50, 50-50 commits, sort of, or at least close to 50-50. That means that you push 50% on the remote repository. They want to see that you, partner A, you committed 50% of the git commits that they see, 50% of the commits they see, or the checker sees on the remote repository, and then partner B is also responsible for 50% of the commits that they see on the repository. That is supposed to represent that one person did not leave all the work for the other person to do. All right.
Understood.
Yeah. So
So
now the
let's say
question is,
out of 10, let's say 5-5, right?
yes, 5-5. It doesn't have to be 5-5, but as close to it that it can be. If you can make it 5-5, that's perfect. Before I continue, I would like to let you know I'm a bit
Okay.
concerned a protocol that you said you had finished
Yeah,
working on the header file. I hope it doesn't mean
what
that
about the Harris?
you
I'm not
no.
done. Just that I created
Don't believe.
the file
All right.
to just
So
put something inside. And my colleague,
all
I
right.
want to see what my colleague will do. Then we'll move on
All right.
from there.
All right. That's fine. I want to I want to so some of the myths that we have in printf when we have to do printf is some people say that you have to have a certain number of files or you have to have a certain number of functions, and that's not true. I mean, you are the one that is creating your printf function. It is your function, is your code. So you're the one that decides what function you want to have. Yes, I mean it's easy. You can easily say that definitely you're going to need helper functions. You're going to have to break it down. Its printf is a huge function, and you're going to have to break it down into its simpler functionalities. For example, a function to maybe print a character, a function to maybe print a string, depending on what you want to do, how you want to do it. But for someone to tell you that you need to have so and so files or you need to have so and so functions. That's not true. You're the one who decides what function you need to have, what to name your function, where to put the function in what file. If you want a certain number of functions to be in a certain file, you are the one that determines that. There's no hard and set in stone way to go about this project. There are several ways to go about it. The first step is to understand first of all what you need to do. That's what Samuel has started introducing us to, and I also put a link to a blog post that I wrote that helps you understand Printf better. It's called Demystifying Printf. Now that aside, back to GitHub. I told you that there are two ways that we can start working on files that each person is going to commit, right? I would advise, and this is how I did this with my partner, that we gain a full understanding of what we want to do. So there are mandatory tasks which are pretty simple. Well, pretty simple in retrospect. To print a character, to print a string, to implement %d and %i, right? And then I think %%. These are five separate functionalities that you're supposed to do in the mandatory tasks. If you're done with the mandatory tasks, at least you're comfortable enough. Then, if you can go ahead to do more advanced tasks, those are just an addition to you, the icing on the cake, right? So at least with the mandatory tasks, you should discuss with your partner. How are we going to do this? What are we supposed to do? The both of you should have an understanding of what you're supposed to do. And that is by understanding, like I said, what printf does. Once you understand what printf does, then you have a better understanding of what you are supposed to do, how you're supposed to implement these things. Like Samuel said, in our next session on Monday, we will dive more into how we can actually go about implementing printf. We won't implement it for you, but I'm sure that by the time we're done with the session, you have a clearer idea on how to go about it if you don't know that already. Now, after you have discussed with your partner about how you want to go about this project, you share tasks between yourself and your partner. This is what ALX uh, expects of you. Okay, I will work on these things while you work on these things. Okay, I'll create the function that will deal with printing characters and printing strings while you work on integers. Something of that sort. Now you have an idea on what you're doing, right? Each of you has an idea. Now, this is where there are two ways you can go about it. You can go ahead and make branches of your remote repository. Okay. So there's the main branch. It's called the main branch or the master branch. That if you don't create any other branch, the default branch is the main or master branch.
I wanted
Some
to ask about that.
Yeah. So if you don't have any, before I continue, I would advise that you go back to your Git. It's in your ALX 0 day repository. The project 0 times 0 3 Git. I would advise that you maybe take a few hours in your day and go back to it so that you refresh your memory on how to work on Git. These concepts of the main branch, creating branches, Git merge, they're actually discussed there. I know that when you were doing that project, you probably didn't know why it was being taught. You probably didn't relate very well to it. But now, if you go back to it, I promise you that it will all make sense, and then you will also uh, be confident in doing this whole Git collaboration thing. So before you do that, though, the main branch, if you don't create any other branch, once you create a repository on GitHub, and do a Git clone into your local repository, there is one branch. That's one branch you're working on when you don't do any other branch. It's called either the main branch or the master branch. Okay. Just think of
Yeah.
it as a tree, and that main stock, that's the main branch. Now, you can decide to create separate branches, one for you and one for your partner. Okay, where you're working on, you have shared the files. Okay, I do these files and you do, I work on these functions and you work on these functions. So we can decide to have branch A and branch B. These are apart from the main branch now. Sorry, before I continue, Samuel.
Yes, Daniel.
Yeah, so it's top of the hour here. Officially, our meeting is supposed to start now. Could you kindly just put a notification on Slack so that people know that we actually have
Okay,
started?
okay, fine. I'm doing that just now.
All right, thank you. So back to Git collaboration. I was talking of branches. Yes.
Yes.
Um, so we have this apart from the main branch. Okay. Partner A works on. So let's say protocol. Your partners with Sile, and so GitHub project. In your Git project, you will find if for example you two are working on the main branch. If you feel, let's say that you feel like the whole issue of creating branches is too complex for you, I would advise you though to get used to it now, because that's pretty much what you're going to be doing when you become a software engineer. But let's just imagine that you feel that the whole idea of creating branches is too complex for you, and you both are working on the same branch, which is the main or the master branch. Now, if your partner pushes to GitHub and you don't do a Git pull is the command to sort of download. Let's just use the word download everything in the remote repository. Every new change that has been made to the remote repository. By remote repository, I mean the central repository on GitHub. Okay, the central repository here on GitHub. Every new change that has been made to that repository that is not in your local repository. By local repository, I mean the repository in your terminal. So the git pull command downloads, in quotes, I'm just using the word download so you understand it, downloads that into your local repository. Now, if you do not do this and you go ahead to push to GitHub, then a conflict occurs. And trust me, you don't want to have those conflicts, are a bit more difficult to deal with. So the best thing is to avoid them. So let's imagine that you decide that the idea of creating branches is too complex for you, and perhaps printf is already too complex for you to start adding that to your stress. That means that you're going to always be, before you do a git push, you have to do a git pull, just in case your partner has pushed something to GitHub without letting you know. And now that brings me to the point that you have to always be in communication with your partner. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to be in communication with your partner. Did you push anything to GitHub? Did you merge to the main branch? All these things. You just have to be in communication with your partner. That's the whole idea of collaboration. All right. Um, Another way to go about this whole thing actually is working, and how do I put it? Working outside the repository. So what do I mean by working outside the repository? You create another directory that is not, you're not pushing it to GitHub. Let's call it test printf or practice printf. Again, this is if you feel like the whole idea of creating branches is too complex for you to do.
For now, it's
So
very complex.
Or it's not something.
I urge you to try to understand it. But I mean, if you feel like it's too much for you to do, just know that you still have to understand it sooner or later. But if you feel like it's too complex for you to do, then another alternative, like I was saying, is create another directory outside outside the repository that you cloned. Okay.
Okay.
And in that directory, do all your building, everything you want to do it there. You know, your partner probably has the same things. Okay, like your partner probably has a separate directory to where he's working. Now the issue is that you're still going to have to find a way to get what the files that your partner is working on. You're still going to have to find a way to do that. Well, that can easily be done on Slack. um there are a lot of online compilers that you can use. Particularly, I love Replit. I'll just send a link. I'll put a link to Replit on the message, the message section, just so you see it. Replit
I know.
allows you. Sorry.
I know of Replit.
Okay. So I use Replit a lot. To be honest with you, when I did printf, I was very conservative, because I had heard a lot about printf. So I know how you'll be feeling right now. That's actually why I told you the whole thing about the myths about you have to have so and so files and all that. Those are myths. You are the one that decides what files and what functions you want to work with. Okay. But I understand. Your first time, you've heard a lot about it. You're a bit anxious. You don't know where to start. But believe me, it's not that hard. It's not that hard. You just
I
have to
hope to.
try and understand what. Yeah, just try and understand what printf does. What does printf do? Once you understand what printf does, which is what we are, we have talked a little bit about, um from the little that someone talked about, I'm sure you have an idea what printf does. Take a look at my blog post. I I went into talking about how printf works, the possible edge cases, what does printf return in different situations, and all that. So it's going to help you. Once you understand what printf does, then you can try and understand. Then you can be able to understand what you're supposed to do. How can I now implement this thing that printf does? All right.
Okay.
Um, Samuel.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, Samuel is not here. He's not here for now.
No.
So while we're waiting for Samuel,
Oh,
Hello
Daniel,
everyone
Daniel,
that
I'm
has joined.
around. I'm here. I'm
Okay,
here.
okay. Are you done with the test suite?
Well, no, not yet. Right? I'm making it more comprehensive, but I'm done. I'm almost done. Just a few more lines.
All right, that's fine. So um whilst someone is finishing up with the test suite, do you guys have any questions, just generally on maybe how to start, how to approach this? Maybe about still collaborating with your partner, or any issue
So,
before we
so
delve
I
into
still have
it.
problem with this um branch things. So right now that I created my GitHub and I did some push, can I go ahead and
Yeah.
create a branch and I'll be doing the work separately on it, or because I'm very
Yeah.
confused about
So when you create a branch, okay, right from the point you created that repository, from the point that repository was created till when you created the branch contains everything. Like it's just like it just think of a tree. When a stalk, branches out from that tree, before then the branch is connected to the tree. So before that point, everything that is contained in the tree is accessible to the branch. So that's what a branch is. So let's say you created a file before you did a Git branch. Okay, the branch contains that file. The only thing is that everything that you now do in this branch that you have created is
Yes.
not a part of the main branch or any other branch until you do a Git merge. Do you understand that statement?
yes, I understand.
Yes, so you can go ahead and create a branch now and start
Oh,
working on the branch. It
oh,
contains everything that you have done so far.
okay.
Excuse me.
All right, so
Yes.
yeah, who's talking?
Yes, I would, it's Sisha.
All right,
I would love
nice.
to know is that since we're working with partners, does
Yeah.
every person have to have their own branch, or we just create a secluded branch where we both work on other than the main branch?
So if you're creating a branch where you both work on, it's as good as working on the main branch.
Okay.
I mean, what's your fear? You don't want to tamper with the main branch. You want to make sure the main branch only has the finished work. The idea of having branches is that you're doing something that you don't. Well, I understand you actually. But the idea of having branches in this situation is that you yourself and your partner, you each have your own sort of your own personal playground. Your own personal space to play around, do things, make your mistakes and all. And then when you have both agreed that what you have done is fit to now be added to this thing that you are building together, then you merge it to the main branch. But aside from that, if so, if you two want to work on the same branch, that can be any branch, including the main branch. Okay. If you two want to work on the same branch, then you just be careful that whenever you're pushing to GitHub, before you push, make sure you do a Git pull. Before you push, make sure you do a Git pull. In fact, you can double check, and before you push, confirm from your partner, did you push anything? Did you push anything just a second ago? Maybe I've done a Git pull and okay, there's no new thing on GitHub, but somehow the two of us are deciding to do a Git push at the same time. Okay, so you have to confirm from your partner. Did you push anything? Are you intending to push anything? Because I want to do a Git push. So before you do a Git push, make sure you do a Git pull. Stuff like that. That way you avoid conflicts.
Just
I
to
hope I've answered
emphasize.
you.
Is it maybe not easy just to make it mandatory that every time you actually have to do a git push, you first pull. It doesn't matter whether you confirmed with your partner so that either way you save
Yeah,
one.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
safer to always do a git pull before you do a git push.
No,
So,
thank you.
okay,
All right.
thank you, Sheila.
Hello. He- Hello.
Hi, Gideon.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hi.
Gideon. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hello. Like my own question is, if like at first time you do the git pull and there is
Yeah.
nothing at the branch, or like they say a code at the branch, would there
Yeah.
be any conflict?
No, there won't be any conflict. In fact, you should see that your branch is up to date. That should be the message you
Okay.
see.
So actually,
Oh,
guys,
thank you.
Martin did a session on how to collaborate using pull requests. I'm putting a link in the chats. I would advise you to watch
Okay.
that session. But the use of branches, as Daniel has explained, is actually a quite an interesting thing. But let me put that the link to that video. He posted it on YouTube. Let me put it in the comments, in the chats. You can see it for any questions that you might be having. Okay, that you
Yeah,
can
that
go
would be
on.
nice.
Okay.
Okay. So, any other questions? Let's deal with the questions now.
Oh, I'm done. I'm done with the test suite for now.
All right, that's
I
fine. So
trust.
we'll just
I trust. I trust
yep,
you'll add on to it as you go on.
yeah, exactly. We should. So, are there any other questions before we start looking at the test suite? Okay, there doesn't seem to be any other questions for now. So before Samuel goes back to taking us through the test suite, just a brief introduction for some of us who weren't here at the beginning. What the test suite is like the main.c that you have on the intranet, where you have all these test cases to compare your own printf function with
The standard
the
printer.
standard printf function. The only issue is that we found out that Samuel and I found a thought that, um, and then from experience too, that main.c, that test suite there could be a bit complex, for you to understand. It may not be for some people, but you can actually create your own test suite, okay, that works for you. Like I said from the beginning, it's this whole thing is not set in stone. You're the programmer here. You're the person that
Yeah, the
calls the
engineer.
shots. Okay, you decide what you want to do. They just eh, they just tell you what they want you to achieve, but you decide how you want to achieve it. Okay, so the test suite is going to help you to test your printf function that you're creating at every point in time. It's not just when you're done creating this wholesome printf, no, but at every point in time when you add a new functionality to your printf, you can actually create something to test if it works the way you want it to work. That's called unit testing. If you let's say you're working on a large project such as printf, that's called unit testing. With that, I'll give the speech to Samuel to take us through the test
Okay.
suite that he has been working on.
Okay, thank you.
All
So
right.
let me share my screen. So okay. So here's the test suite I've been working on. So as we all know, so just before I begin with the test suite, the code that you'll be pushing actually, the code that you'll be pushing, it should not have a main function inside it. I'm sure you, if you've read the instructions, then you know the code that you push up onto your GitHub, it should not have a main function in it. This is so that it prevents any the checker will be compiling the code, and it has two main functions. It will give an error and your code won't compile. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, so what this test suite does is that it tests the various edge cases. Okay, the various edge cases that you may have, the various edge cases that you may have against the standard printf and how the standard printf handles them. So before we began, we said that printf returns a value and it returns the number of characters it has printed. So what that means is that if you pass to it an argument like a string or an integer, if it prints an integer, it will count the number of digits in that integer that it has printed and add to the number of digits everything that printf prints, it will return it. So that's why we declared two integers, int len and int len2, to actually take the return value of printf and the return value of the printf that you've been developing. Now that's actually why we have this. So the test is actually pretty simple. It takes printf and it assigns it to len and it prints this. It takes the same input. Now that's key. It takes the same input as the input that is given to your printf. So for example, in this particular case, it says let's try to print a simple sentence and returns an integer. And then it tells you the standard printf returns %len while your printf returns that. Okay. So with that, you can try to gauge if your printf is actually getting the correct count and if everything is going on well. Now the next part is about passing a variable number of arguments. So I started with a character, and I see I just said let me put line numbers. Okay. So as you can see in line 16, I initialized it to y and I see, so we started that character and then I compared it to the compared to the standard printf, my own printf. I initialized the character to null and I did the same. And then another trick that we might be having is that when the character that is passed to the percent sign is not a format specifier. For example, the letter V is not a format specifier. The letter E, the letter Z and such, they're not format specified. So your printf should also account for that. It's not mandatory that when somebody writes percent, it must be a format specifier. Hence, I wrote that into the test suite in line, as you can see, in line 24 and line 25, and I also did that. So I also did the when I also initialized the character to an integer, because we know characters are stored as integers in memory. If you did the puchar tasks in the first month, you'll remember that. So I did that and I also tested them, and then I also tested it for when the percent sign in line 31, when the percent sign is followed by another percent sign. Okay, and you'll see that. And then I think I forgot to include when the percent sign is alone, when the percent sign is not followed by anything. But I think I did include I did include that when it ends in line 34 and line 35. You see, when printf when it comes at a percent sign, it expects something after it, a format specifier. Now we've seen what happens if it's another percent sign, and then now we'll see what happens when it ends with a percent sign. Now this is key, because you might just you it's not good to assume that when you don't know what will happen, because if it encounters a percent sign at the end and the next character is the null terminator, it won't act well. Okay. So the thing I need to actually include in this test suite, that I haven't included, is for when the printf encounters a percent sign in the middle that is alone, that is singular by itself. Okay. So let me just try that before, and then after that, I those are the tests I could think of, that I could remember actually from my time while doing printf, when I was, or the test with the edge cases for the other, for the task, so percent sign and for the character, then before I delved into the format string. So hence when the percent is in the middle. Okay, so and for those who are wondering about the formatting, the pink colors in the middle of my screen, that's actually a way for me to check, for me to handle Betty checks while I'm typing actually. So that's, don't worry about that. And for this particular case, I'm not following the Betty standard, because uh, it's a good idea to always follow the Betty standard. But in this particular case, I'm making a test suite and I'm not planning to use this code, so I'm not following the Betty standard for this particular case, and it's for this particular case alone. Okay. So that's that. Now, so so when the percent sign is in the middle, my laptop is a bit hanging a bit, but then so let's see. So that's that. And then the next line in line 41 and 4. So from there, I initialize the string to a simple string. And then I also did the same. I checked what would happen when a simple string is passed. A simple string is passed in the middle and at the end. Okay. And then I checked when the string is passed with a character so that you have two arguments instead of one. Okay. So I'll be putting this test suite in GitHub. Now it's a GitHub of a fellow cohort. It's a fellow cohort 17 student. I would encourage you to use it. You can use it. I think I'll share the link for this test suite in the chat. But then that GitHub won't have any code for printf. So in case you're planning to look at the code, remember the framework. You're not supposed to look at any other person's code before you do it. So that repository will not have any code on printf. It will just have this test suite in that repo. Sorry. So that's that. Now for the strings. Now all these are just the edge cases that will be testing your printf to see if it actually works with the original printf. Now I can't use it because I haven't coded this particular printf, but then if I had, I would actually, what is it called? If I had, I would simply compile this and then use it with my original printf, use it to my printf. So as you can see, it works simply actually. So it works simply. It simply takes the input, it checks the return values, and it prints out. So whenever you see a discrepancy, the first line is always the standard printf. The first input is always the standard printf, and the printf that gives the return values specifies what your printf returns and what the standard printf returns. So that's to help you realize how. So that's that. Now if you failed, then you know what would happen. Now each of them is structured like that. This test suite actually is structured like that. You remember making a similar one when I was going through the project, and it helped me do a lot of things. Now for the string, okay. Now for the string, actually, you to think of the other test case that I think, okay, other than ending with a string, is when the string is null. So you realize that the string is a character pointer, and it's not mandatory that it will always have a value, a good value that is given to you. Sometimes the string can be initialized to null. So you also need to check for that. So that's that. Then let's see. So that's that. And then the test suite is over. This test suite is fine for task one. As you can, if you haven't noticed, this test suite does not include any task. For task 0, I mean, this test suite does not include any integer input and any other input. For those tasks, for those questions, you'll have to create your own test. Okay. So I don't know if it's making sense, but I think I've been clear. The test suite simply checks what your printf is doing against the standard printf, because if you read the instructions, they were very clear. Okay. They were very clear that if unless otherwise stated, it should work just like the original printf, the printf given by the standard input and the standard output. Okay. So are there any questions?
Sorry, before any questions, Samuel, I think one last condition would be if the format string itself is null.
Null. It's
Yeah.
empty. An empty string.
Yeah. Empty, yeah, an empty string and then null. Those are two conditions, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Ah,
Yeah.
okay, those are the two conditions I need to add, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So let me just do that right now. So any questions? Oh, there are no questions on the test suite. Wow, it looks like they have understood everything.
I have a question.
Yes, ask.
So I'm saying character and string. What about floating points?
Yeah, like I said, this is for task zero. The test suite I'm developing is for task zero alone. For those ones, you will test it yourself.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because I think this is a team project. You can work with your partner to test, and floating point is an advanced task. You mean an integer, right? But you can still do the floating point. Okay,
Okay, because you are doing the test for the
that's
string, character, and int. So I'm not saying floating
percent.
point. That's what.
I'm not doing the one for int. I'm
Oh,
not doing
okay.
the one for int. It's string, character, and percent for task zero. And this is just meant to show you how to make a test suite for this particular project, where you test the edge cases, things that might happen, things that might be passed to your printf. Just that.
Sorry, correct me if I'm wrong. Where are you supposed to I'm not sure there's any of the tasks to deal with floating points.
It's an advanced task.
Um
It was in the advanced tasks.
I can't
It was one of
I'm
the
not
advanced
even get
tasks, I think. In fact, another advanced tasks asked for the precision of the digits in the floating point.
yeah, yeah, precision and with
Yes.
precision and width and all that, but I didn't see floating points.
You didn't see floating point.
No.
That's fun. But I seem to remember reading about it. It was an advanced task. When I was
Okay.
refactoring my code, when I was refactoring it, I came across.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Okay.
But even if it's not there, you can still just do it as how do I say it?
Yeah. Well, that's an advanced task, though, like you said.
Okay, any other question? But you do understand how to create a test suite, right? Guys? Hello, guys?
Not really. Yes, I thought the one they gave us in the um as like the preamble. So we'll be using that one to test. Or
That one is good, but then it's good. It's actually a good test. It's good. But then what it doesn't do is that it doesn't show you where you are wrong. For example, it doesn't it's good, but it doesn't really show you where you are wrong, where you're going. As you can see in this particular that test it was a bit complex, at least for my case, it was a bit complex because it just gives you the numbers, it gives you numbers and arrays and format specifiers, but it doesn't really show you where you are wrong. So that's that that's the problem with that test. That's why I chose to develop my own. Okay. But then you can still use that one that is given in the task. If you can understand it, that's correct. Just use that one. It's not mandatory. But then it's good for you to develop your own that helps you understand what you're doing and what your code is doing and where you might have gone wrong.
okay.
Yeah. So to add to what Samuel just said, the difference between what we have here, what we're trying to create, what we're encouraging you to create, and what you have as the main.c on the intranet is that, for example, the main.c does not handle if null is passed to printf, or if an empty string is passed to printf or to your own printf function. Okay, but this, what we have here, what we are trying to create is a very comprehensive test suite that deals with the edge cases. So it's like a mini checker on its own. So you think of all the possible edge cases and you try to test it to see if your code is responding the same way that the standard printf function responds to that specific situation. Because they have said that unless specified, that your code, your printf function should work just like the standard printf function. So that's what we're trying to get you to do. An alternative is to wait um, for the checker when the checker is released, and then you use the checker, but then you don't exactly know what checks you're getting wrong. Okay,
Yeah, that's
until after the QA. Yeah,
yeah, that's actually one of the issues I kept running into. It just tells you the output of your code is wrong, but it doesn't really tell you where it is wrong, right?
exactly.
I remember also
Yeah.
dealing with that.
So I see Kafilat is raising her hand. You can unmute yourself, Kafilat, and
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
I'm
I.
sorry, I'm joining so late, and I can see that I've missed a lot already. Please, are you recording this class?
Yeah, I'm trying to record it.
Okay, where are you going to drop it when you're done, please?
I'm going to post it on YouTube, and then I'll put a
Oh,
link on Slack.
all right, thank you. Thank you then. All right,
But
we can
you can
continue.
still ask where you're going wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I've met a lot of things here already. I don't know what to ask. I've not even started my printf, so I don't know what to say right now. Until maybe when I started, then I'll know where I'm having problem. So I'm just going to relax and be listening to class so that from there I'll learn a lot. Thank you.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
All right,
So no,
thanks.
just Kafila. Not many people who are here have written their printer. So,
Ah,
what
well, I have a lot I don't really understand, and some that I've read, I'm kind of losing it, or kind of like the structure one, and a lot. I'm just trying to like get myself. Unless you want to recap everything you've done so far, I don't know. But I don't want to actually drag you back.
Okay, so what we're doing actually in this particular case, we're developing a test suite to test our printf against our printf, so that we
Okay.
ensure that our printf works exactly like the standard printf would do. And then this test actually as actually tests for, or is it?
Can
It
I
te-
mute?
yeah, you can
Can
mute.
I mute?
Yes,
Okay.
please do.
Thank you. Thank you.
So this test suite actually, it tests for the, or is it? It tests for task zero for the, or was it? I keep forgetting. Task
Yeah.
zero, the
Yeah.
character, the string, and the percent sign. Okay, it just tests for those alone. Now that's this test suite just does that. So that's what we are doing. We just talked about developing a test suite to test against our code, and then after we do that, we talked about GitHub collaboration. If you can look, if you can read through the charts, I've linked a video Martin posted on YouTube on GitHub collaboration, so you can watch that video and to gain more knowledge. And also, if you want more knowledge, Daniel wrote an article on how to printf works. So that's that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any other question,
So, what can I get this article you wrote on Printf, the one Daniel wrote?
Daniel?
Um. Yeah.
It should be on the
So
charts.
I don't know. I don't know if you can see the previous messages before you
Join.
joined the group. If you can't, I'm just going to post the link again to the blog post. It's on Hashnode. Okay. And I just posted it. It
I've
really
seen it.
just,
Thank you.
all right, that's fine.
Thank you. All right. Thanks.
It talks about the different functions, how printf responds to different scenarios. Just the edge these edge cases that we're we're using our test suite, to find out if our printf that we're creating works the same way that standard printf works. So to understand how standard printf works, okay, that's what my article tries to talk about. I hope it helps you. I trust it will be helpful though.
Okay. Any other question? So again, just to reiterate what we've been saying. So this test suite is actually I used my own test suite because it was more user friendly for me than the one given by the one given by Alex. And if you actually read the instructions, they usually say that the main function that they use to test the code might be different from the one the checker will use. So it might be a good idea to actually consider this test suite that we've done and to make your own. Now this test suite only works for task 0, and if there are any edge cases that I might be missing, please be sure to actually include them yourselves and create your own test suite so that you can be sure to do that. Okay. Okay, any other question? What file, Oscar? Oscar, I can see you asking, how can we access that file?
Yes, the one that
Hello. No, you can go ahead, Oscar. I'll ask after you.
okay, the one that you are writing, the one that you are going to use for testing.
Okay, so
I've heard you talk about pushing it on a GitHub. Which account?
that account does not have the, but let me push it right now. Okay, so that's that. A moment.
Um, so
Okay, I'm
Celia, you
still
have
here. I'm still here. I'm just, going to to the GitHub to get the file. But if the what was the other question? Please ask.
yeah, Celia, you had a question.
Yes, I do. I wanted to know that do we need to create a test suite for each task, or we can actually develop just one test suite that will take all of the tasks?
I would advise that you, how do I say this? I would advise that you develop a test suite for each of the tasks because each of the tasks has different edge cases. Okay.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
But the one that was given to us would pass.
Yes.
But then when you run the checker, it fails.
It
And
fails
you
some
be like,
checks.
okay, where am I getting
Yeah, yeah. That's because the instructions themselves make it clear that
the output wrong and the rest?
the instructions, if you read the instructions before attempting the project, they make it clear that the test files they give you might be different from the ones that they'll use. Okay, for example, they may just give you to write some numbers, but they won't tell you they will be testing against the maximum integer, the minimum integer in such cases. Okay.
Yeah. So to add to what Samuel has said,
your
the idea of
repository
edge cases, what exactly are edge cases as we call them? Let's imagine that you're building
to
a
a new
a
repository.
program that
So I will change the repository. Check
is
first
going to be
if I
used.
remote
Okay, so let's imagine that you're
that
building
has
a program that is going to be used by
expired. So I
users
want to
out
change it
there.
to longer pick a
You don't know
this
what
merge
they're
pick
going
or
to. Maybe let's say that
it's
a program
remote
takes in
set
some sort of
URL
input from
origin.
the user. You don't know what the user is going to input. I mean, you can't tell, but you have to think of, as a programmer, it's your duty to think of the all the possibilities, sort of all the possible things that your user might want to input.
I see. Thank you.
Okay, guys, any other question? Dennis, you can still ask. We're asking, we're receiving questions, Dennis.
Yeah, I think I'm late.
URL I
I
want to
just saw
send
the
it to.
note,
This is the
the
new
message
product to
on
Git URL.
Slack now.
And this here is the
But then, will you be posting the recordings?
it has changed the
Yes, yes, I'll post the recording. Yes, I'll
Uh,
post the recording.
All right, thank you.
version.
so any questions? Not just on the test suite now. Are you having any difficulties? In going about. This is the first day, right? Or the second day. Are you having any difficulties starting this project? Maybe you don't know, you're clueless as to how to even begin this whole thing.
Yeah,
Just anything at all.
I just succeeded in creating the repo and sending the request to my partner. Just how to start is where I'm stuck because I can't see any clear instructions on how to go about it yet. So that was why I tried to join here. But I'll just go through the recording if you can post it.
Yes.
If there's any way you can guide me right now, that will also be fine.
All right. So if you go through the recording, I'm sure that you'd have an idea where to start. But just a brief summary, okay? Where to start? The first place to start is to understand how Printf works. Okay. How does Printf work? Um Also to understand how am I going to go about this with my partner. These are the two major places to start from. Like I said, if you go through the recording, there is a link to, if you look through the message section of this meeting, there is a link to an article I wrote that helps you to understand how Printf works. Now, Samuel, together with all of us here, we have been working on a test suite. A test suite is basically a program to test our printf function after we have created something. Maybe we're done with task one, okay, or task one. We're working on task one with this test suite we just created, okay, to test to see does our when you start writing your printf function. And then, yeah, it's very important to note this. Please, whiteboard. If you're not used to whiteboarding already, please do a lot of whiteboarding before you even start writing code. Okay, before you open your Vim or Emacs or whatever you use, please whiteboard. Write if you can write with pen on paper. Please do that. If you want to use Notepad on your system, whatever way, but please whiteboard. Have at least a skeletal structure of how you want to do this. Okay. But that would only happen after you have an understanding of how printf works. I hope this helps you.
Okay, thank you. I suppose this how is it printf works should be that document I saw on the uh, page, like the activity itself. There's a document fact about printf, right?
Yes, that you mean on the concept page. Yes, that's what ALX released to you. I understand. We understand that that might be you know how ALX is. It might be if you find it too complex, okay. I
Yeah.
mean, we've gone through this, and so we've looked for simpler ways to explain it to you. That's why I wrote the blog post. Okay. So it's important that you read the concept page. It's very important you do. But in addition to that, to help you understand better, um, resources such as my article, resources such as this entire recording, actually, this entire session, and the things we've talked about here are going to help you. As regards collaborating on GitHub, my partner Samuel, he dropped a link to Martin's a video that Martin. I don't know if he did the video or he just released the
There's,
video to
there's
us?
this
No, he
document
did.
in the
He actually did a video.
Okay.
I
okay.
think I've reposted it here.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
on YouTube.
Yeah.
Martin did a video on collaboration using pull requests, and it's actually a good video. And he's like the senior technical mentor, so you can give it
Yeah.
a look.
All right.
Yeah. And also, I see that you shared the
The test
GitHub
suite,
repository with our test suite. Yes.
and it's just the test suite. If you're looking for the code for printf, it's not in that repo. So I'm sorry about that. If you think that you'll have to find the code in that repo, so I'm really sorry about that. It's just the test suite. So, and I wouldn't encourage you. Actually, remember the LX, the framework specifically says not to look at other people's code. So,
Yeah.
and another thing with the test suite, it's simply for task zero alone. Task zero alone. For the other tasks, you'll have to develop your own test suite, and you can follow that guide. You can use that one as a guide, but you'll have to follow your own test suite. Okay. For the integer and the task one, the integers, you'll have to actually work with very large numbers, and I hope you know how to print large numbers, because the trick is that they can't be stored in a variable, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll find my way around that. I just like you said, I'll just look for how to start the task zero, and that will be fine.
It's actually quite simple. I mean, it's not that difficult, but
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So in our next meeting, we're going to
on Monday,
dive. Yeah, on Monday, we're going to dive deeper into the Printf project. Different concepts that will help you to start. Okay, these are concepts that you have already learned, but just to relate them more with the Printf project. To be honest with you, there's not something new. There's nothing you've not learned already that is required of you in this Printf project. It's just how to put your knowledge together to make this work. All right.
Okay.
Protocol, you want to say something?
Yes, I don't know whether I'm allowed to ask this, but my question is: let's say I'm working with a lot of functions, and I want to put my function somewhere. Is it possible for me to put it in the header file, or I can declare the function in the printf function itself, then use them there?
it's
Okay.
possible. Or to answer that, the way I'd ask is that you declare the. I would ask that you keep the prototypes in the header file, okay, and then the actual definition of the function, you put them in different files that you link them together and compile them. Protocol.
I'm here.
So I'm saying for the header file, you'll just declare the function prototypes alone. And then for the definition of the functions, the actual code in the functions, declare them in different files and be sure to compile them together because they will be compiled together. Okay? Because you remember you're not supposed to have more than 5 functions per file.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay?
Oh, okay.
So
So
we have a
Gideon,
couple of instances here.
Yeah, hello.
yes, Gideon,
Like like we working together as partners.
yes.
Like are we supposed to have like different codes altogether or what?
Different what together?
Codes.
Codes.
Yeah, I mean codes. With
Daniel, why don't you take him through this?
Yeah.
You're not.
So let me take that. So let me take that. Gideon, the way this works is this. You don't have you're probably working on different aspects of your printf function, okay? But at the
yeah,
end of the day, you're pulling these different aspects together. So it is one code that makes up the printf function. One code. It is not that you have a separate printf function and this other person has a separate printf function. It's just that you decide on how you just divide this division of labor. So you work on this aspect while I work on this aspect. at the end of the day, we join everything together and then compile it. So if we're working on, for example, two different branches, okay, I'm working on my own branch and I'm working on an aspect of printf, okay, and then my partner is working on his own branch and he's working on a different aspect of printf, depending on. So I'm trying not to say this or that, because you are the ones who decide, okay, you work on this while I work on this. These are my strengths, and so this is what you can work on this while I work on this. At the end of the day, let's say you're working on two different branches, you people are going to merge your code. That's why it's called a merge. Merge your code, merge your branches to the main branch. Now, like I said at the beginning of this session, the checker does not care about your branches, your separate branches. The checker cares about the main branch. Okay, I hope this has answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Please, Daniel, if you have any document on understanding these pointers to functions, because that
Function point.
aspect I really got confused.
All right, all right.
Okay,
Before
Dennis.
before you even get to that, okay, go ahead, Samuel.
No, no, I was just going to tell him to reach out privately on Slack on function pointers, and I'll be able to explain it. But
Yeah,
there are lots of articles.
all right,
Many people have gone before us have written articles, and more people will be writing them. But you can reach out privately on Slack on function pointers. But
yeah,
to answer you,
that
on
works.
Monday we'll be sure to touch on function pointers a little bit.
Okay, all right.
Exactly, exactly. So Hassan, your hand has been raised for some time now.
Hassan,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Actually, I was looking at this test script that you sent, and I
yes,
am really confused. You said that it's for tax zero, right? And we are
yes,
supposed to create our own for each
each
question that
task,
we're going to encounter. So
yes.
I don't know if you can shed more light on the test script, how it is done. Not that you are trying to show us maybe how we are going to implement it, but just a little insight. I'm really
Okay, so let me share my screen again. So here I have a test suite, okay? So if you remember in the beginning, we said printf returns a value and it returns the number of characters it has printed to the standard output, right?
yeah.
So what this test suite does is that it compares the return value of the standard printf and the printf you have, okay?
Okay.
You see that? And then after it
Yeah.
compares them, and of course you'll for the output you'll see on the screen what printf has printed. So if you look carefully at the test suite, each of the first line is the standard printf and the second one is your printf, okay? So you
Okay.
can just follow it like that. So and then after it has compared the return values, it then prints them out using the standard printf. I said it says the standard printf returns this while your printf returns this, and it gives you the values, okay? Hassan?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I'm getting it.
So you can compare, you can see what the standard printf has returned and what your printf has returned, and you compare them and you see if you're counting something wrong or if you're not counting something wrong. And then from there I go now to pull the arguments. I test characters. I see what happens when the character is given a null value. I see what happens when the character is given a random value and it's given an int value, and I go on like that. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I get
So
it.
from there, I go to the percent sign. So when the percent sign is at the end, okay, when the percent sign is given a character that is not a format specifier, when the percent sign is not given any character at all, but it's simply a space, when the percent sign is given another percent sign at its end, and I look at those cases and I compare what your printf will do and what the standard printf will do. And in each time, I'm sure to write what printf returns and what your printf returns. So using it, you can now see what is actually happening, where you might be wrong. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I understand.
Okay. Thank you. So
all right.
Oscar.
Oscar, yeah.
Okay, so I heard you talk about creating different files where you define your functions. Is it possible to just have them in one file instead of having different files?
Having all your functions in one file.
Yeah, you define them in one file.
Well, it's possible, but unless if you have you understand the Betty guidelines, right?
Yeah,
So Betty says that you're not supposed to have more than 5 functions per file, right?
yeah,
So if you have just 5 functions, well, yeah, it's possible to have all of them in one file. But I wouldn't advise that. I mean, because I'm sure if you read the instruction, they say they'll combine all your .c files, right?
yeah,
They'll say they compile all your .c files. The reason for that is because you might have a file that just deals with characters, deals with how we format characters, or you may have a file that deals with how we format strings, or you may have a file that deals with how you format the integers and all that. So it's actually better for you if you actually formatted them. How do I say this? If you formatted it such that it has just so that you spread them across different files, and you just have 5 functions per file for the Betty checks, because the Betty checks will fail if you have more than 5 functions.
Yeah.
But
So just
if you can structure your function so that you just have 5 functions and 5 functions alone, well, you can just use one file.
yes. So Oscar, I hope you understand that when he says defining your function, a function definition means the actual code contained in that function. I hope you understand that.
yeah.
All right. Just wanted to make sure.
Okay, Kafilat.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I heard one of you talking about the branching earlier, that we can do different branches. We don't have
Yes.
to push to the main branch. So I'm now wondering, how do I create my own separate branching in
All right.
GitHub?
So to understand everything about creating your own branch and how to merge back to the main branch afterwards, two things. First of all, um, someone has sent a link. The very last link you see on in the message section is a YouTube video by our very own Martin, the chief technical mentor, that talks about using GitHub, with Git pull requests. Basically, I don't know if it somehow does it also talk about branches and all.
Yeah, it delves into branches as well.
All right. So I would advise you to take a look at that video. Go through it.
Can you please resend it? I can't
Okay,
see the
fine,
message here at all.
fine,
Can you
fine.
see the
I can't.
message session at
No,
least?
I can't see
I've
message
resent
section
it.
here. Okay, thank
I've
you.
resent it.
Sent again. I've seen it now.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right. All right. So I'd also advise you to go back to your Git project. Okay, it's in ALX 0 day project 0
Okay.
times 3. I'd
0 day.
advise I'd advise you to go back to it. Some of the resources there was one specifically on Git branching.
Creating
Okay,
branches.
yeah. In fact, there was even this, I will call it a game, a sort of a game, that is a very visual explanation of, creating branches and all that. So if you need more explanation, if the video is not enough for you, the YouTube video, I would advise you to go back, and take a look at that that resource. Is going to be very helpful at this point. Sile, your hand is raised.
Yes, you said something about having this meeting again with regards to the printf
Yeah,
itself now. When is that?
On
it's on
Monday.
Monday. Yeah,
On Monday.
Yes.
yeah, on Monday. You have, so I'm Daniel Hubbard and my partner is Samuel Ngosi. You you see the notification on Slack, prior to on the day of the meeting. Okay, and there'll be
You
some
you
reminder.
can, but you can also reach out to us privately on Slack.
Exactly. Yeah. Please, please.
If you need more information on anything, you can always
Yeah.
reach out to us privately on Slack.
Does that mean you're available even over the weekends? Privately?
Yeah. If you can find us online, yeah,
No
Yeah.
I'll be
problem.
sure
Sure.
to
Thank
answer.
you.
I mean, we're ALX students as well, so
Yeah,
we're
students as
out
well.
here doing hard things as well. But certainly, we'll make our time to, attend to your issues and see how we can help you. That's why we're learning ambassadors.
That works. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So, stay in the other one with any
Any other
questions.
question? Okay, so fine. Let me stop my presentation. So,
Yeah.
let me confirm that I've pushed everything was done. Nope, everything is good. Okay, so guys, it was nice meeting you.
Yeah.
But
So before
go on,
okay.
Daniel.
Yeah. So
Hello,
Yes,
uh
Kafilat.
yeah.
please. I want to know your full name so that I can look for you on the Slack. Daniel and
Samuel.
Zimbo.
In Slack, I'm called
Your
Samuel,
full
and
name.
Zimbo is my surname. Samuel.
Azimbo is your son.
Yeah.
Samuel Azimbo.
No,
And
Samuel
Daniel what,
Ngosi.
please?
Daniel Harvard. You'll find the name in the message
Oh,
section.
Daniel Abbott.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All
And
right. So
it's Samuel
thank you very
Ngosi.
much. Yeah.
No, you search for Zimbo, you won't find it.
Both of you.
Yeah. No, I'm good.
All right,
My
thank
name is
you.
Samuel Ngosi. If you want to find me, I'm Samuel Ngosi.
Samuel Ngozi. Daniel
Yes.
Abbott. All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
When I'm confused, I'll look for you. Thank you, sis. God bless you.
Okay.
You too.
So thanks to everyone for joining us in our session. I hope we have helped you. I hope this session has been very helpful. Like we said, the recording is going to be available on the Slack channel. The video is going to be on YouTube, and the link to the video will be in our Slack channel, in the Slack channel. Okay. We're also going to be posting a feedback form. Please help us fill this form. Okay. It's going to help ALX know how we have helped. If this has been helpful, are there ways that we can improve our sessions? Okay. So please do well to help us fill this feedback form. And we're going to be hosting, like we said, another session on Monday, probably around the same time. But you will get a notification on that. You'll see a notification in the Slack channel as well. Do well to join us again as we conquer this together. Printf is totally doable. You can do it. Okay. Uh, thanks once again. Someone over to
Okay.
you.
The session is fine, but so let's just give you the form so that you may fill it. Yes, Kafilat.
I was asking for the form to fill. The
Okay.
Okay,
Google
fine.
form.
It's a link. Give us a moment.
All
Daniel,
right.
you have a link to the form?
I have to get it. Let me just get it.
Okay, thank you. Send it so that they fill. It's important that you fill the form so that in the next session we are more you gain more and it's more informative. Okay. Any other question as the form is coming up? Okay, you're welcome, protocol.
No questions. Thank you on my side. And have a good evening.
Okay, that's the form. But you're very welcome. All of you are very welcome. So please fill the form. Okay. Thank you. So remember to fill the form before you quit and fill it right now as your memories are still fresh so that when we go through it, we may be able to help you even more on Monday so that you beat the printf. So if that is all, I'll close the meeting right now. Okay? Okay, guys.
All right, guys. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good night, everybody. Remember to have a good rest and wake up to code even some more. Thank you.
It's very important.
Okay.
All right.